Hi, this is David Valade with AltaVista Technology. We've been doing more and more with inventory within Sage Intacct, and we realized we had a lot more ground to cover with our videos, and that's why I'm here today. I wanted to show a little bit more about what we can do regarding inventory with Sage Intacct. And perhaps because of my background in accounting, I always like to start with the accounting, so let me do that. Here I am looking at a dashboard inside my environment, and you can see here I'm showcasing a lot of things that a CFO might care about. Different kinds of ratios and graphs, very visual sort of dashboard here. And what I like to do here is show something about performance and kind of make a point with inventory. So let's say I'm here on my dashboard. I see this nice little bit of information here about revenue, cost of goods, operating expense, and net income. And I can see here that, wow, when I hover over my December here, and this is backdated to 2018, I can see that, wow, there's a lot of spike here for revenue. That's interesting. So if I'm putting my CFO hat on, I might say, well, I wonder what's going on there. So let's get there. I'm going to click the little looking glass here and open up another window. And sure enough, I can see, wow, revenue is really off the charts here in December as I saw. Yeah, it's just a bigger view, so I could see that a little more clearly. And down below, now I can see some of the numbers behind it. So yeah, I can see definitely, wow, revenue went up considerably in December of that year. I wonder what's going on. So I'm going to come up to my graph and click on one of the segments. And here I can see a nice little condensed total revenue report that's showing me that same number I saw a second ago. And now I can see it a little more clearly of what makes it up. I can see that it's a mix of my product lines that I have my financials segregating here. I can see surveillance is the one that is the line of business here, the brand group here that's driving most of my revenue in this month. So I'm going to click on that, and I could drill in, as you might expect. And if I make this a little bit bigger, I can see all sorts of revenue that I have here. And I could drop this to Excel, or I could email this off if I wanted to ask somebody a question. But just looking at this this list of invoices here on my general ledger, I can see lots of good things, lots of good dimensions here. But I see that one transaction here, this 230,000, seems to be the one that's making up most of that. Now don't forget, I started here at a dashboard on a graph, and I keep going here. I'm going to click yet again, and I'm going to go look at that individual transaction. All right, so here I see a general ledger report. Nice boring accounting here, not a lot going on, but I see I can drill in even more to see the sales invoice that went to my customer. Great. All right, this looks good. I see an invoice here, and if I scroll down, I can see there's some items. It looks like there was no sales tax on this particular thing. Okay, that's fine. I could see it was this one item here. Looks like out of this warehouse, this location, this department, and I have a channel dimension I'm here. Again, just another way we can have dimensions to show profitability. And it was a quantity of 100, and my unit price, pretty pricey for this security system. Not bad. It's a little bit past due, I think. I might want to make a phone call on that, but and I can see my payment details. Actually, I can see total invoice amount, total paid, nothing there. You know what? We have that little bit of chatter here. I could say, hey, somebody, hey, we should call on this, and then leave that as a little message here. That can actually, I could have addressed that to somebody else in my organization if I wanted to. Nice handy way to have some chatter here to talk with other people in our organization. But if I go back over to this history tab, this is kind of interesting to me. I'm able to see on this sales invoice all the history that has to do with that one document. So working from the bottom up, I can see, sure enough, I see a sales inventory invoice. Yes, I see that. And I can see if I work backwards from there that was converted from a shipper. And that in turn was converted from a sales order. And it's all connected here. I happen to have all happened on one day over just a few minutes. These are all clickable links. These are all things that I can find information out. Likewise, I can go back to the history and see if we delivered that invoice timely, if this is past due, who did we send it to, all of that information. Likewise, I can see that my other documents are fully completed. So from here, if I'm a CFO, I could go back to that original sales order that started the whole process, and I could see what happened on this sales order. Did we short ship anything? Did they order more and cancel something? Did I use drop ship functionality or draw from my warehouse? I can see here it came from my warehouse, and I even see how I shipped it. All this information is super great. That makes it real easy for a CFO in my example to see down to a granular individual transaction what happened to drive revenue in any given period. That's amazing to me. But we're not done. One of the cool things that I like to point out is that in this example, as we're looking at here, we started with a sales order that became a shipper that became an invoice. That flow is totally decided by every organization we work with. You may not have a shipper. You may have 3 kinds of shippers. You might have one process for your security product line and another one entirely for an accessory product line. That's the great thing, is that we get to set up those different flows. We call those the transaction definitions, and we say what path we need to take. You can even have certain users have certain security, so they can only do interaction with one flow and not another. Let me point out a few more examples, though, of some other really neat things that are related to inventory. Now, here I am back on my dashboard screen, and I'm going to go on my little menu here, and I'm going to go down to my inventory control area. And if I go to all, you'll see there's a lot of things we could do related to lot tracking, serial tracking, physical inventories. I can do some kits. I can do lots of good things here. I actually want to show a simpler way. If I click this little overview button, this interface that you see here is very, very simple. These are all clickable navigation buttons that our users can use to interact with the system, to either receive inventory or to transfer inventory between warehouses, or do really anything that we have in the system that they have security to get to. So this is a simpler menu, which I think is a great way to have some of our entry-level clerks or people who are new to the system have just an easier way to navigate. But we do have more functionality than that. And let me just touch on a couple ideas here, some more advanced bits of functionality that Sage Intacct has. One is this idea around replenishing inventory. I'm going to go into the replenish inventory screen, and I am going to run a report here. And if I just expand this to look at my options here, what this is set to do is it's going to use a certain kind of purchase order with certain kinds of rules around it. And it has a certain delivery place associated with it. And I can put in some filters here so I can run this process to tell me what purchase orders I ought to create. For example, I could expand the filters here. I could ask Intacct to tell me what purchase orders it would suggest for any given location that I'm doing work within, or any warehouse, or any product line, or any item or groups of items, or for a certain vendor. And when I create that purchase order, do I want the system to try to use the preferred vendor or use some other vendor that I have associated with my item? Now, just in the interest of working with demo data here, I'm going to leave all my filters off, and I'm not going to have any dates or anything like that. And I'm not going to restrict this by item or anything like that. I'm just going to click apply filter. And there we go. I have, in this case, it looks like about 15 or so items that the system thinks I need to order. So I'm going to click on an item here. This one looks interesting to me. I'll just click on this, and let's take a little bit deeper look on this one item. I can see that this particular item, there's the vendor I would buy it from. I could see that I have a lead time of 90 days. Ooh, so I better act quickly here if I need to get that inventory in-house. I need 201, and that's coming from all the different orders that I have in the system. And then in addition to that, I can see I don't have any on hand. Oh no. And future activity, I don't have any forecasted. Well, that's interesting. I could have forecasted inventory brought in, but in this case I don't, which means I have a quantity to purchase of 200, and my purchase price that I have on file here on a price list for that vendor is $1,000 each. Now I can override that, and I could say, you know what, I could do that right from here. I could say instead of 201, I'd rather just do an even 300 and leave it at that. And if I call my vendor and I can negotiate a little bit better price there, then maybe I can change that to be something that I like better. And if I hit create purchase orders, anything that I have checked a box on will have a purchase order created for it. So I could work this a few different ways. I could, on this window here, change the amount that I want to have purchased. And then when I'm all done, click this create purchase orders at the top of the screen. Another way I could do this is, instead of making my edits here, is I can create the purchase orders. Now I'd have a list of purchase orders created all day today, and then I can go ahead and modify and edit and change those. Maybe I want to get on the phone with my different vendors and I want to negotiate with them some different pricing. This is all standard functionality built into the system whenever we have inventory enabled. Right, I have one last example that I wanted to talk through, and it requires for me to hop into my friend Excel. I've worked with a lot of accounting systems over the years, and I will see something like what I'm about to describe here. And in those other systems, my fix is often very, very manual. So let me tell a quick story here. Let's say on January 1, we received some inventory of a certain item. Pretend this is all one item. And in my example here, let's just say here that on January 1, I received 25 of a certain widget, and it was $90 per widget. And then a few days later, on the 10th, I received another 25. This time the price went up slightly to $110. Great. So everyone in my warehouse is working hard. It's busy. We've received in 2 batches of this one particular item, among many others, I'm sure. So we have 50 on hand. And if I had average costing here, I mean, I could have FIFO, I could have any number of different setups. But in this case, let's pretend we're using average cost. Then on the 20th, I sell 50 of the units. And that by looking at this, if this were the full story here, I sell 50 and everything goes to 0 here. So the system would calculate that the average cost for those sales is $100 per unit, which is correct. And this is a nice, happy story. Everything's great. But let's say something different happened. Let's say I insert a little row here. Let's say we booked everything just like I showed here in Excel. I booked my 2 receipts in early January and I booked my sale later in January. But let's say instead we get some paperwork back in the back office here. We realize after everything had been booked, there was a transaction that was not entered timely. Oh no. So let's say on the January 15th here, I'll just make up that date. Let's say I had another receipt of inventory that came in. And let's say on that day, I received, let's say 500 widgets. And how much did that widget cost? Let's say that cost $299 per widget. So that would mean the cost for that part was very different. That just changed my average cost per unit in this example to be $280.91 per unit. But because of the timeliness in which I booked everything, I booked that sale on January 20th and I booked it at $100 for my cost of goods sold. But that's wrong, right? It should have gone out at $280 per unit for my cost of goods sold. So I have a problem. And again, in other systems I've worked in, that would mean making a manual correcting journal entry a lot of times. But I'm going to show you a better way. So if I come into Sage Intacct here, there's this option here that says maintain inventory valuation. And I'm going to add a step here. And I get to do something here where I can put in my name and my email address. And I won't read through literally everything, but just look at what we could do. We could say we want to have a valuation. Maybe I'm doing a spot check on one particular item. I could just pick the one item. I could investigate just certain items. Like maybe I only want to look at my FIFO items or just my average cost items. I could do that. Again, groups or warehouses, whatever makes sense. And if I wanted to, I could say, all right, Intacct, I would like you to analyze and update everything and all transactions, whether it's cost of goods sold, maybe even on moves, whatever, do whatever I have to do. And you can book any corrections in my open periods and even update the general ledger if needed. And think about that. I can have that run, and then that would fix the problem that I had in my Excel. It would have seen the problem. Intacct would have understood that there was a sale that was booked at the wrong cost, and it can make correcting entries to make everything what it ought to be so that my subledger and my general ledger agree. And even better still, I can go into the schedule here and I could say, I am so happy that this maintain inventory valuation exists that I would like the system to automatically correct itself, run this routine and make a correction if necessary every day, week, month, or year. And just turn it on. And then if I save my schedule, then this will run automatically. And I can always go back in. If I cancel on this, I'm not going to save that. I can go back in and I could see past transactions. So I could see on this date, there was a few errors that were found because of some things booked out of sequence. And I could always go back in and see in detail, like if I were to drill into that last correction here, I can go down to the bottom and download the activity in Excel for all the inventory items or cost of goods sold corrections that were made. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I hope that helps understand how inventory fits in with Sage Intacct. If you have any questions, feel free to drop us a line over at Alta Vista Tech. Thanks.